Roger Stone is on the phone.
Hello, Roger.
Welcome back
Good morning, ladies and germs.
How are you? Feisty. Yeah. Welcome back to Jim Norton and Sam Roberts.
Great to be with you guys again.
How are you holding up?
Well, it's like that movie Groundhog Day. Mm-hmm. It's 2019. I'm still under federal investigation, despite 2.5 years. The government reading all my emails, all my text messages, listening to all my phone calls, and still they have no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime. It just seems to be never ending. I was on with Carlson last night and talking about the impact on my family and my business and so on. It's right up there with a proctological examination. I must tell you, is one of the great experiences of all time.
It sure is. You bet. You tell that to the cum on my leg.
So, Roger, how did you feel? I saw you. You got to. They mocked you in an episode of Family Guy recently. And
was that great or what?
It seems like you're wearing it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, there's 4 stages of fame. Yeah. They are, who is Roger Stone? Mm-hmm. Get me Roger Stone.
Right.
Get me a Roger Stone type. Mm-hmm. Who is Roger Stone? So I'm kind of in phase 2 at this point. Saturday Night Live has a segment coming up on me that they've been promoting pretty extensively. The only thing worse than being talked about is not being talked about.
That's 100% right.
Do you think the president is handling the shutdown well?
Yes, actually I do. He's a very stubborn guy, very stubborn. I don't mean that in a negative sense, but when he sets his mind to something, and anybody who says we don't have a problem there, that the fact that, enough fentanyl came over our southern border to kill every man, woman, and child in the country over the last year, I think that's a problem. The fact that they say, only 6 terrorists got into the country. 6? Really? How many were involved in the 9/11 attack on the country? So I think he's doing the right thing, and frankly, I think Nancy Pelosi's not doing that well.
Almost misspoke there.
Yes, you did.
Weren't the 9/11 terrorists on airplanes?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, okay, so.
Well, they didn't come in that way. Or did they? They came in the country from Canada.
It doesn't matter how they came in. Anytime you
get a
terrorist in the country illegally, it's a potential danger to the country. So one terrorist would be one terrorist too many. It only takes one to shoot up a shopping mall.
Yeah, but I think the people are bringing up 9/11 because they're saying that the wall that they built in Mexico would not have prevented the 9/11 people from getting in, right?
But nobody said it would. What we're saying is that the presence of terrorists who are in the country illegally, regardless of how they got here, is a bad idea. Look, I just that all these Democrats, Obama, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck E. Cheese Schumer, they all supported a border wall at one time. They're just against it now because Donald Trump's for it, just like they didn't like the war in Syria.
Hey,
in fact, they didn't like war at all. Most liberals I know were anti-war. At least it's always kind of been that way.
Yeah.
Until Trump announced that he was going to end the war in Syria and bring our troops home. Now we're against that because Trump's for it. Or even better, the criminal justice reforms recently, which, in all honesty, I've been arguing with Donald Trump for years about this issue and the disparity in sentencing between black people, poor people, disadvantaged people who are using rock cocaine and people who are using powdered cocaine. There's much harsher mandatory penalties for rock cocaine, for example. I couldn't get anywhere on this. Kim Kardashian waltzes into the Oval Office and boom, it's done.
Wow.
But I don't care how it got done. It's the right thing to do.
Right.
And there's 7-10 African-American members of the House, all Democrats, voted against it because Trump was for it. They've always been for it, but now they're against it because Trump did it. It's a manifestation of Trump derangement syndrome.
Yeah, I'm not actually arguing any of that. But going back to what we were talking about before, if we're anti-terrorism, we should probably be paying the TSA, right?
Well, I got mixed emotions about that. They kind of bubble to the surface every time I'm going through. It's funny how they stop me and go through everything in my bag, but the guy behind me with a turban holding a box at ticking, they let him walk right through. It's very strange.
Well, yeah, I think that they get me on the random, quote unquote, random stops too. I think those random stops are just so who they can actually technically stop whoever they really feel like it and claim it was random.
But we are supposed to have the TSA, no?
Yes, they should.
They should
but
exist.
but let's face it, you kind of have that criminal look, so I could see why they might.
No, I understand. Believe me, every time I'm parked in front of a grade school, there's an issue. They just want me out.
Roger, do you think it's an issue that all the airport folks are not
Getting paid at all?
getting paid?
The problem is I don't know how effective that program is. To be honest with you, I honestly don't know how many bombs they've actually found, or how many
They found those shoe bomber guys.
Keep
That's true,
changing their
Pastor.
rules. You notice that? Oh, a cigarette lighter, you can't have this. Your laptop has to come out. Your laptop has to stay in. Your iPad has to come out. Your iPad has to stay in. I don't know how effective all that is. But it seems to me that the president keeps making compromise proposals. Yesterday, he offered, 2 days ago, I guess now, he offered to give them what they want on DACA in return for the wall funding. Seemed to me a good compromise where everybody got what they wanted and Democrats wouldn't go along.
Did he offer everything back from DACA or just a temporary relief?
I'd have to go back and look at it, but I thought it was a pretty substantial offer.
But it wasn't quite what they had been asking for, right?
So, all right, so give Trump $4 billion instead of 5.7. Let's get somewhere.
Right.
We do need to get somewhere. Both sides are being stubborn for sure. I was happy to see that even with everything that you have going on right now, Mr. Roger Stone, that you were still able to get out your much anticipated annual best and worst dressed of the year list.
Yeah, this gets harder and harder to do. I'm now in my 13th year.
Uh-huh.
Well, it used to be done by a guy named Mr. Blackwell.
Right.
He was a Hollywood designer, and he would always put out a list of the very best and worst dressed people in the country. And his criticism could be withering. He could destroy your career.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that kind of oomph, but I do try to compile this list during the year. And let's face it, once you saw Michael Cohen's sports jackets, you knew he had to be on the list.
Do you think they were good jackets?
No, I didn't know Ralston Purina was making sports jackets, to be honest with you.
Well, it's interesting, and I would never accuse anybody of bias, not on this
Does
program.
ideology tie into the outfit?
No, not at all.
I don't think
Dan
so.
Jones from CNN was on my best dress list.
Okay.
I don't
Right.
agree with the guy on anything.
I don't think so either. I don't think that there's bias. I just think, here's some of the names on Roger Stone's worst dressed people of the year. And it's tough to argue them.
Sure.
Lena Dunham, Michael Cohen, Mark Zuckerberg, Beto O'Rourke, Steve Bannon.
There you go, Steve Bannon, known right winger.
When
He's not hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah,
I think that your history with Steve Bannon is not. I've never known you guys to be on the most familial of terms.
In past years, for example, Rand Paul has been on my worst dress list. I think he was on it last year.
Oh, I see.
Look at my best dress list. You got Van Jones, for example.
That's true. That's true.
I've had Anderson Cooper has been on the list, and he gets an honorable mention this year. Mike Smirkanish, not exactly a flaming right winger.
No.
From CNN.
No,
So
he
I
isn't.
think the list is never been ideological. Ted Kennedy was on it when he was alive.
Mm-hmm.
He had that Ivy League All-American look that he shared with his brothers. It's really not ideological. It's strictly built on style. I mean, let's face it. Are you going to argue that Lena Dunham doesn't look like she dresses out of a dumpster?
It's a tough argument. It would be a tough one to win, especially the photo that you posted.
Let me see Lena Dunham. I always enjoyed her outfits.
If you scroll up to the top of the worst list section, Troy, you'll see Lena Dunham, and there she is. Yeah, I mean, she does. Scroll down.
She's black.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's Lena Dunham.
Not a great outfit.
No, not the best outfit in the world. But why Cam Newton? Cam Newton didn't stray. He seemed like stylish in the photo that you posted. It's a form-fitting outfit.
It's never very well put together. He needs to get advice from Shannon Sharp. Shannon Sharp has moved into our lifetime achievement category. He's been on the list so many times. So you can be big and muscular, and you can be an athlete, but you can be very well turned out, like, say, Dave Beckham, who makes the best list.
Now,
I've never heard anybody call him Dave Beckham before.
No, me neither.
All right, David Beckham.
What do you
know,
think?
for example,
Yeah.
Audrey Gelman, who is a Democratic political operative in New York City, one of the best-dressed women on the face of the planet. She's on the list. So it's really not at all ideological. It's based in style, and frankly, it gets harder and harder to do every year.
Is that because there's
so
less
many
and-
people just don't care.
But Elton John, you put Elton John in the worst dress, but doesn't he kind of do that on purpose? Like just loud, flashy. It's like getting mad at a rodeo clown because he dresses bad at his job.
Yeah, well, look, we've given him a pretty wide berth, but, if you're going to wear athletic tracksuits, you should be somewhat athletic in some way.
He does in his casual life. He does wear bad clothes.
He's put a couple of pounds. The picture they have is him on stage. He looks like he's a bit heftier than I'm used to.
That's true.
Well, he is 110 years old.
He's getting up there.
I was reading, all these articles last night about the leaks in the White House and who the leaks are. And the newest one that I've read is people think that Kellyanne Conway is leaking information about Trump to the press for some reason.
Probably to her husband and pillow talk, and he tells because he hates Trump.
Very possibly. Do you think Kellyanne Conway is responsible for the leaks, Roger Stone?
I really don't. I've known her for 30 years. I just don't think that's her style. And she just has there's no motive for her to crap where she eats, to be honest with you. I think she's one of the ones who doesn't leak. If you want to find the leakers, look for the Bush Republicans. Look for the deep staters who've managed to get jobs in this administration. So I really doubt that she's a leaker. That's just an opinion.
Do you think she's embarrassed by her husband being so fucking vocally against her boss?
How could you not be? I mean, I'm not sure. That must be a very interesting marriage. I'd like to hear that pillow talk because, he's entitled to his opinion, but I think he's particularly nasty, and he's not in the public realm. He's a trial attorney. Where she is, I think it's somewhat unfair, and most of his criticism is wrong when I read it.
How does Trump tolerate that? Like, does she bring him to the White House for like dinners or things like that?
I would think not.
He probably doesn't do a lot of the family activities.
I would think not.
That is so crazy.
I also think the president understands that one is not responsible for the political opinions of your spouse. You're only responsible for your own political opinions.
Do you think she should dump him?
I would. I mean, look at the guy. But, what do I know?
He didn't make your worst dress list.
Who knows?
He didn't make the worst dress list.
No, he's not that bad. I mean, first of all, it's hard to even find a picture of the guy. I just think his attacks are gratuitous. I don't get it.
Yeah.
He's an attorney?
Yeah.
Do you think it's distasteful to make gratuitous attacks on people? You wouldn't do anything like that, right?
Never done it in my life.
Okay, good. I just wanted to
You clown.
put that on the record. What do you think? Speaking of gratuitous, of all the coverage of the MAGA hat kids, the Catholic high school kids that were looking at the Native American guy.
Thank God for the internet and video cameras, because if this happened in 1970. There'd only be one narrative, the narrative controlled by the 3 TV networks, and we'd all be told that this brave Native American Vietnam War hero was menaced by these mean high school students from Kentucky. But thanks to the wonders of the internet and a video cam, we now know that's not the truth. And it was kind of heartening to see Jake Tapper and others retreat, because everybody jumped out there with a completely false narrative. Believe me, I know how this is. I mean, it's great to wake up in the morning and read every other week that you're being charged that day and go to jail. I had Newsweek report that I was in plea negotiations with Robert Mueller. Not true. I had CBS report a month ago that I would be charged and arrested the following day. Refused to retract. So there's a lot of fake news out there. Ari Melber did a whole half hour last night. By the way, he has the worst breath of anybody I know. Just awful.
Just glad we're not gratuitously attacking people.
This guy, you can always tell when Ari Melber is lying. His lips are moving. This guy was always holding up. Randy Credico was on once a week to say he wasn't Roger Stone's source regarding the significance or the timing of the WikiLeaks disclosures, until I produced text messages that prove indisputably that he was. Boom. He's gone. Ari never says his name again. He doesn't even exist. So now it's Jerry Corsi. I don't know if you've seen this guy. He looks like a fish. I mean, this guy is out there just lying his ass off about me, all the while trying to say, I will never tell a lie. I'm the new George Washington. Meanwhile, the guy is in there spilling his guts, saying all kinds of things that aren't true about me, none of which is supportable on anything other than the memory that comes from his alcoholic haze. And I can prove with text messages, emails, metadata tags on his documents that he's lying. Can prove it. So, I mean, it's just another day in the life of Roger Stone.
Roger, I know you don't like hypotheticals, but I always throw these hypotheticals at you, and I would just like to know, and this is just, I don't know, I'm sure you haven't even thought about it, because this is not going to happen. Okay, for the record, I don't think this is going to happen. But let's say, again, you got bamboozled. We're talking
Hoodwinked.
We're talking the West Memphis 3. We're
Run
talking
amok. Led astray.
An innocent man has gone to jail. And you do 6 months from now, let's say you get completely framed and bamboozled and you get put in jail. Do you think, if that were to happen, as an innocent man, you go to jail, do you think you would still work on a best dressed, worst dressed list for this year from jail?
So let me ask you this. When you're leaving the studio tonight or today, when you get popped for possession of marijuana, would you... Oh, pardon me. I don't like these hypothetical questions.
No, I know.
But let me just say, regardless of what happens,
right,
the international best and worst dress will be produced every New Year's Day for the rest of my life.
Okay, good.
It's a staple.
Yeah, I think it's necessary. I think that would be the thing that people were most worried about. If you were to go away for a long time, people would go like, well, how are we going to know who the best and the worst dressed is?
That's
you
right.
don't have Mr. Blackwell anymore. And you go, don't worry about it. They can put me in pinstripes. I'm going to be the best dressed guy in pinstripes.
Well, you know what they say. They can put me in jail, but they can't stop my face from breaking out.
That's right.
That's a very good expression. What do you think they're going to? What do you think they're going to do with Julian Assange? They're a little tired of him.
You probably talked to him.
It boggles the mind. Julian Assange is a journalist, and he definitely publishes information that's embarrassing to the government. He's embarrassed both Republicans and Democrats. He's published a lot of information that embarrasses the Russian government, interestingly enough. But they seem to be bent on this narrative that he's a Russian asset. Well, that's a nice theme coming from the same people who told us Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. But there's no evidence to prove it. There's no court decision that proves that. It's just a charge. In America, you're innocent until proven guilty. Nobody's proven that. I think his great sin is that he's embarrassed very, very powerful people. All my friends who were liberals loved him when he was embarrassing the Bush administration. Now they think he's a criminal. But if you convict him of publishing classified information, well, then you have to charge the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal. It's in my own best interest for him to come here and be questioned, in all honesty, because he would tell you what he's already said publicly. He never had any communications with me. I had no advance notice of the source or the content of the WikiLeaks disclosures. The one exchange we did have over direct message on Twitter, I turned over to the House Intelligence Committee. Go read it. They brushed me off. So, he put out a comprehensive statement about 10 days ago where he flatly denies any communication with me. That's accurate.
But aside from all that, I've always wondered, is Julian Assange a good meal companion, or is there just so much information that it gets boring?
Yeah, does he have good manners?
Having never met the man, I couldn't tell you.
Oh.
I do think he's got a lousy existence. Don't get the idea that the Ecuadorian embassy is somehow opulent.
Right.
This guy has basically been in the same closet for 7 years.
Yep, I know.
No sunshine, no exercise, can't leave the grounds. He's essentially in a virtual prison.
Does he have posters
up?
up?
They cut off his internet access. The guy can't even play video games.
Does he have posters up in his room?
Couldn't tell you. Haven't been there.
Oh,
now
let's try.
Do you think?
What, are you working for Mueller?
All right.
That guy can't dress either, by the way, that Mueller.
No, he can't.
No, he's no good. He's not a fashionable guy. Well, Roger Stone.
Yes.
We always appreciate...
I, by the way, don't necessarily agree with that. He's got the Brooks Brothers button-down thing down pretty good. He's not too bad.
Are you tired of people wearing these form-fitting suits now? Because I know you're an old-school guy. You just wish people would go back to wearing the bigger jackets. Almost like a zoot suit.
No, that's not true. It depends on your build. In other words, the silhouette of your suit, the style of your suit, should be based on your physicality. If you're a young, thin guy, then one of those close-fitting suits can look very good, the Thomas Brown look. On the other hand, if you're built like Henry Kissinger, you should probably be wearing something that drapes a little bit. It all has to do, You can look this all up in my book, Stone's Rules, because it's covered very extensively, but it has to do with your build.
Right. It should flatter you at the end of the day.
Exactly. And a great tailor can hide your flaws.
Well, I'm looking for one then.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Roger. Well, thank you for calling as always.
Yeah, you're always fun to talk to, Roger. And if this
Those
is
who want to help the Stone family can go to stonedefensefund.com, because every dollar I can scrape up has to go to the lawyers.
yes,
Okay.
help Roger. They are harassing him. These legal fees are very expensive. You should help him, and you never know when this is going to be the last time he calls the show. So we really appreciate it every single
Any
time.
help Roger gets helps us.
That's right. That's 100% right. Thank you very much, Roger.
Thanks, guys.